It is Wednesday, July 17th. Wake up, wake up. Damon Bruce, Larry Krueger, all trade requests. Get them in now. Apparently, it's the time to do it. What's going on, Larry?
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll say this,
Wait a minute. Haircut. Somebody's got a fresh haircut. Oh, my
That's
goodness.
right. Christopher, too. 2 for 1 down at DiMaggio's. But yeah, I mean, in a way, this reminds me so much of last year. Last year, talking endlessly from March on, hey, by the way, I'm reading the tea leaves, don't hate me for saying it. Don't think I'm rooting for it. But I just want to let you guys know, I know a lot about this football team, and I know a lot about John Lynch, and my interpretation of everything that's been said is that they're recommitting to Brock Purdy and they are trading Trey Lance. And I said that.
No, Larry,
I said that in February.
Larry, you're a hater.
You're a hater. You're a
Larry.
racist. You're anti-Trey. Oh my God, just going on and on and on and on and on. And then seriously, by the end of the spring, I was like, guys, I'm not rooting for this, but I'm predicting this. Do you guys understand the nuance in there? Do you understand the difference between somebody predicting something and somebody, wanting it? I'm not telling you that this is the move I'd make, but this is the move they're going to make.
This is what you think is going to happen. You're not trying to speak it into existence.
Fast forward to this year, and there's always like one major story because the offseason is long and the demand for the topics is great. Well, this year, the big topic was clearly Brandon Aiyuk, right? And this contract. And yes, after several weeks of going through all the different options and all the different angles, we had covered it, and the fans were like, hey, enough of the Aiyuk. And I got it. I understood it because I also feel the exact same way. Enough of the Aiyuk. Let's get this solved. Heck, you were openly rooting for this thing to be solved just so we wouldn't have to talk about it. But I do feel somewhat vindicated by yesterday because we kept telling you, this is not your run-of-the-mill negotiation. This is different than Debo, different than Bosa. And there's real feeling that maybe it doesn't get done, or maybe it's the Niners don't want to pay a receiver this kind of money, especially when they don't use receivers all that often. And so we kept harping on it. People were like, "Will you guys just stop with your incessant Aiyuk's going to be traded? They're going to sign him. It's like, okay, well, guess what? You're fucking wrong. They're not, they didn't sign him, and it's not going according to plan. And there's a very good chance he gets traded. And even though they say he's not going to be traded, I still think there's a very good chance that he's going to wind up being traded. But anyway, I just feel somewhat vindicated that instead of just saying, we'll just ignore the story and pretend it doesn't exist, we attacked it every day with, what's the latest? Here's what he's saying in the Pivot podcast. Here's what he said here. Here's what he's doing over there. And a lot of you were like, hey, man, this is much ado about nothing. You're all wrong. It obviously was much ado about something. And so now here it is. Now we'll see where it goes.
And having said all that, let me hip check you during your victory lap just a little bit, because the truth does remain that Brandon Aiyuk is still a 49er. He could very well be a 49er this season. He might not miss a game. He might have a long-term contract. The extension that the Niners are prepared to give him hasn't even been put on the table yet. If they are going to come back around and get to it in the time that they normally do, which is later this month, which is still coming up later this month, early next month. So the time in which the 49ers do their business about extending players, we haven't even struck midnight. What this is, more than anything else, is the final symbolic Hail Mary of attempting to find some leverage in either the business negotiation, the public negotiation of all this. This is more performative than anything else, because the 49ers don't need to meet Brandon Aiyuk's trade demand in any way, shape, or form. As a matter of fact, if you really want to get down to brass tacks of the whole thing, they control him this year contractually with a $14.5 million option, and then can franchise tag him for 2 more seasons beyond that. So Brandon Aiyuk doesn't have like the steering wheel now and he's controlling anything. This is still 100% in the 49ers corner. What did happen? The thing that I guess did happen is if there's any other NFL team thinking that they could really go ahead and pry Brandon Aiyuk out of the 49ers, this moment tells the league, put your best offer together. And the 49ers might listen to it. And that's really all that has happened. It's the final Hail Mary that Brandon Aiyuk had left in his playbook of trying to get a deal done before training camp opens. Now, the whole smooth start to the training camp that I know you and I wanted, we wanted all math and business to be left inside 49-49 Centennial, and you just want to see guys go out on that practice field and start putting together the pieces to win a Super Bowl. That's not going to happen. That's where the disappointment is. Plus, the Ricky Pearsall, injury couldn't be worse timed, to be totally honest with you. But
it's not a major injury,
injury, right?
But I mean, he has not been on the practice field yet without a blue jersey.
Right. I mean, his career hasn't started. He's already hurt. That's not good. That's just not good.
Well, I mean, hurt. He's dinged up. But yeah, I mean, my big question is he durable / tough enough? So we're not off to a great start.
No, we're not. And that's the thing. In a year that has the highest of expectations, it feels like the great, smooth, harmonious, everybody in the locker room on the same page start is officially like no longer available. Does that mean that they will be, rocked off their access and not be a competitive football team this year? No, not at all. Doesn't mean anything like that. But, looking for smooth in a bumpy schedule, they're not going to start out much with it.
Well, I mean, first of all, every game's a challenge in the NFL. I mean, teams were in the playoffs last year that weren't there the year before. There's huge. Every team's got 20 to 25 new players seemingly every year. There are no laydowns. There are no gimmies. There are no, they're getting paid too. It's just these games there's only 10 possessions, a couple of turnovers. All of a sudden we saw the Jets beat the Eagles last year. I didn't think I was going to see that. And the old saying of any given Sunday is totally true when it comes
absolutely. There's no such thing as an easy NFL game. Not one.
No. They're all challenging. So, and this will be no different. They'll be challenging. But the question is now, okay, so now we kind of know that this is not par for the course. This is not just your run-of-the-mill negotiation. It appears that both sides are digging in. Now, maybe I'm getting that wrong, but that's what it appears to me. It appears that Aiyuk is like, you know what? I want that biggest bag. I don't want a big bag. I don't want a hometown discount. I want the biggest bag, and I really don't care what team I'm on. And that's where he's coming at it. And he's playing super hardball, going to the mattresses for his money. But as you stated correctly, he has no leverage. The 49ers are basically looking at him saying, you're saying play me, you're saying sign me or trade me, and we're just going to give you a one-word answer. No, we're not going to sign you and we're not going to trade you. So the only question I would have is, are the 49ers, I mean, Aiyuk's only got one way to play this if he wants to get paid. He's just got to be like, I'm all about my money, my money, my money, my money, my money. That's it. No nuance. The 49ers, though, could play this any number of ways. And I'm eager to see how they play this if this goes to its logical conclusion. So the logical conclusion is next week, the vets report to camp, and he's not there, and he's holding out. Okay, so now he's holding out. You want to pay him what you want to pay him. He wants, twice that in a long-term deal. It's not in your best interest to do that, in my opinion, because you don't know what Cowing is, and you don't know what Pearsall is, and you don't know how Debo's going to play, and you don't know what Brock's market's going to be. And heck, all things being equal, I'd rather make this decision a year from now when I've got all those answers. Then I could decide, do I absolutely have to have Aiyuk, or is Aiyuk just totally extra because these other guys are awesome? So there's a lot of unknowns right now. The Niners don't need to do this deal right now. So The question is, though, if Aiyuk plays super hardball and holds out, how do they respond to that holdout? What if he holds out for a day? What if he holds out for a week? I heard somebody say that if he reports by week 10, he accrues the year. What if his game plan is to hold out until week 10?
I thought it was week 6.
Somebody said week 10. But either way, what if his plan is to hold out until the last second and you're going to not have your starting wide receiver for, I don't know, all 3 weeks of the preseason and maybe 6 to 8 weeks of the regular season? Do you still want to keep him then? Or at that point, are you willing to handle or to at least entertain the idea of moving him? I don't know. I'm not sure if I like the way the 49ers are playing this. I know it's easy to say, well, they should have got it done earlier. Yeah, it takes 2 to tango, and he didn't want to. His stated goal was, I want to wait. And their stated goal was, you know what? We'll see where it goes. When you wait on a market that inevitably goes up, you're inevitably going to pay more. So I don't see why this should be a surprise. I don't know that it's like plausible to think that the market going up is in any way a surprise to guys like Lynch and Shanahan and Parag when this is their job. This is what they do. They knew the price tag was going up. So do you fault them for the way they went about this, or is it possible that they really don't want Aiyuk long term because they know they've got to take Purdy from $950,000 to maybe 60 plus million. They know they can't afford him, and they know there's a plentiful supply of wide receivers. So I don't know. I don't know that it's everything is as it appears. Let's just say that.
Well, first of all, I like B. Lauren saying, "Hey, I'll take a trade to Chat Sports right now if you pay me $25 million a year." I said earlier in the chat, Larry, anybody who's got a trade request, get it in there today. But look, there'll be plenty of blame on all sides, I think, no matter how this ends. There's a lot of, you could have done that better. You should have seen that coming. You should have anticipated that a little bit better. And this isn't, all the way 2020 is hindsight. The 2020 vision and hindsight go together. It's not one of those. We talked about this in real time as it was happening. I think the 49ers didn't evaluate the situation and the players' marriage to being as severe in this situation as humanly possible the right way. I don't think they evaluated it right as opposed to the wide receiver market. I don't think they evaluated it right as opposed to the right time to trade him, if that's going to be the ultimate conclusion. But there are basically 3 things now that can happen. There are only 3 things that can happen, and they come with varying consequences, right? They can just tell him, nope, see it, $14.5 million this season, risk the holdout game, risk an unhappy player in the locker room. They can extend him in some way that leaves everybody either equally happy or equally unhappy. But a deal is done and he is a Niner long-term. That can still happen. Or they can actually execute a trade. What I would suggest, Larry, is that the waiting game has failed this negotiation to this point. So I hope there isn't an awful lot more investment in the waiting game. I would try to reach conclusion on this as soon as possible if I'm the San Francisco 49ers. And I would not play the I bet you he doesn't hold out trade, because you know what? I bet you he does. Does this guy not have holdout written all over him?
I would be absolutely shocked and a little disappointed if he did all this and didn't hold out.
Right. Exactly. He is so pot committed to I'm playing my hand this way that I don't think there's any backing out now. He can't just fold and take the $14.5 million. So I think that this is one of those, you better be careful what you ask for, because you're going to get it. You're going to get it. If you ask Brandon Aiyuk to pay for $14.5 million and be unhappy, you're going to get that. If you do find a way to extend him, you know what you get? You get one of the best wide receivers in football on your team in a season that you're trying to win a Super Bowl. That sounds like a really good idea to me. I still think that there's a very good chance that something gets done. I really do. I do, because he's that good. He's that valuable. I mean, Chase Sr., our friend of Wake Up, Larry, has been putting out and sharing some stuff from Warren Sharp that man, you get into the details of what Brandon Aiyuk does well, it's hard to see what he doesn't do well. It really is. This guy is really good at his job. He's a really good player. And up until the last 15 minutes of his entire existence as a professional athlete on our radar, he hasn't bothered anybody. I mean, the man's been a total pro, lunch pail guy. I don't even know what his voice really sounds like. He does not, seek attention, but up to this moment in his career, he has never been a look at me guy. He is not a diva wide receiver. He's turned into one in the last couple of months, but this is a guy you want on your football team. He's a really good football player. He's a really good wide receiver. He blocks in the running game like he was an offensive pulling guard, for goodness sakes. And he's deep into the inner working knowledge of what Kyle wants, what this team needs, how it all fits together. You don't want this guy walking away.
Yes, but I mean, let me push back on this for a second. You run the ball the least, or you run the ball the most. You pass the ball the least of any team.
But I think that needs to change a little, and I think you want that to change a little when you have a quarterback that you finally believe in and a running back that just cannot be used in the same manner that he was used last year. They have to treat Christian McCaffrey a little bit more like a natural resource that they will run out of if they exploit it too much. So I think they got to change their offensive philosophy, Larry, and Kyle Shanahan will want to do that with the right quarterback, which he now has.
I think he's already come out this offseason, has been asked about if he's going to make any changes to his offensive philosophy. And he's like, no, we're not. My offense is my offense. We're not going to run more 3 wides. We're going to do what we do.
He's not going to tell everybody, yeah, this is our plan for this year, and let's tell it to everybody. Of course he's going to. Shanahan plays it all close to the vest. He doesn't show his cards.
There's a difference between playing it close to the vest and saying, no, we're not changing. I mean, it's not like he didn't answer it and said, hey, we'll see. Check it out. Everything evolves. We'll check it. No. He was like, we are not going to run more 3 wide receivers than we've run in the past.
But they might be throwing a little bit more on first down. They might be throwing a little bit more, not depending on play action.
What doesn't change is the fact that we're talking about a $60+ million investment in 3 wide receivers on a team that's dead last in rush attempts. And then if you look at what the Niners have done this offseason, they've extended Jauan Jennings. They drafted a wide receiver in the first round. They doubled down and drafted another wide receiver in the 4th round. Then they went out and after they had all these receivers, they went out and still signed Trent Taylor. Then they rebuffed any efforts to trade Deebo Samuel. So now he's there. And then you went out and you added some useful offensive weapons at running back too. So, whether McCaffrey's runs go down or not, it doesn't mean that the Niners runs go down. Plus you got a run blocking offensive line. I mean, if you look at this offseason, none of the moves they've made this offseason say, yep, they're going to pay Aiyuk. If anything, if you looked at these moves, you'd be like, they're establishing a surplus of wide receivers and they're going to trade off that surplus. I mean, that's exactly what they've done. I mean, a lot of people thought they would never extend Jennings or that he would get an offer and they would just let him walk. Nope, didn't happen. And then a lot of people thought they were going O-line or D-line in the first round and they went wide receiver, only to go wide receiver again and then to go sign another free agent receiver and not trade Deebo and add a couple good running backs. And I mean, it's like,
so you're,
I don't know.
You're
I mean, where's like
if you were selling bumper stickers of really good advice that you've given on your channel, Larry, one of them could be forget about what they're saying. Watch what they're doing. Everything the 49ers have done has basically said, we're going to try to throw the ball a little bit more, right? I mean, that's the offseason that they had in terms of drafting 2 wide receivers, signing Trent Taylor. I think that they want to get more out of their offense, and Brock Purdy is a channel which will give them more in their offense. And I think that Kyle does want to do that. The scary thing here, with or without Brandon Aiyuk, the scary thing is, let's say you don't have Brandon Aiyuk. You did trade him. He is holding out, whatever. And now Debo gets hurt. Because the Debo, it always does. Now what are you? What are the 49ers without Debo Samuel and Brandon Aiyuk? Because you have to consider that existence. It's funny. The team that is so loaded and deeper at wide receiver than they've been in years gets really, really thin, really fast if one guy goes and the other guy gets hurt. So that would be, if Kyle Shanahan up at night if I were dealing with this,
Yeah, but I mean, Jamie, come on. If you lose Leonard Floyd and Nick Bosa, you don't have a pass rush. If you lose Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw, you don't have good linebackers.
You can win a game without quarterback sacks. You can.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, if you take away, Mahomes and Pacheco, the Chiefs have no offense. I mean, I hear you can play this game forever.
Mahomes and Pacheco are always there. Debo Samuel is not. Debo Samuel should never be treated as he'll be there every game. Don't worry about him.
No, but he's got motivation. I mean, he's in a contract. He's got no more guaranteed money on his deal. He's in a contract year. He runs through. He doesn't run around. That's a big part of it. But, they just have an awful lot of resources tied up in receivers in a game where in the game plan where they like running backs and they like to run it. So I don't know. If he was a true difference maker, be one thing, but he's just a very good receiver. I'd rather see him here because I'd rather see them play with him this year. But I from being in the locker room and knowing the players a little bit and seeing the way they interact, what is not a big deal to one guy is a huge deal to another guy. The question is, what's going to be the impact of, hey, you come in here and you play on that 5th-year option and we'll deal with your extension when we are good and ready, damn it. What's going to be the impact on the room as far as what's going to be the impact on Aiyuk? I don't know. To me, it seems like he's going to be sullen and in the corner of the room. And I should have gotten taken care of. And I just don't think it's a positive thing to have a guy, to enter into this level of we're going to get a negotiation or a long-term deal done and then to not get it done. There's going to be he's going to be disappointed. We'll see how professional he is. I hope he's a total pro and you wouldn't know the difference, but I wouldn't bet on that. I'm not saying he's not a professional. I'm just saying there's going to be, I think, profound disappointment and lingering issues. And I just kind of wonder if that's really what's in the best interest of the team. So, this thing's gotten out of hand.
We already had, a cryptic message by Jauan Jennings, which suggests maybe there's already a locker room kind of looking at Brandon Aiyuk as what are you being selfish here? Jauan Jennings, by the way, has dispelled that myth, saying that whatever that was about, it wasn't about Brandon Aiyuk. He said, never would I diss my brudda, Brudda, Brandon Aiyuk, broski a made man. Brudda and broski appearing in the same Instagram post from Jauan Jennings.
Jennings, by the way, so those who didn't see the original post, he put out a post that says, you got to be a different type of person to act like you're doing everything by yourself, knowing dang well you not. And I think a lot of people assumed because of the timing that was about Aiyuk, and it still very well could be, and this could be a made up diverse, story to get off his tail, but who knows? Who knows? And at the end of the day, who cares? I mean, I really don't care. I don't care if how Jauan really feels about.
Well, and I'll say this: I really like Jauan Jennings. You had 19 catches last year. Like there were more words in that Instagram post than you had catches. So just go to your just sit down and stay out of this one.
Yeah. So now the question is, what do you do? What do you do? And to me, I think the assumption anytime a player makes a trade request is that trading him means releasing him and getting nothing. And that's not what that means. There's no law that states just because you don't want to sign a player to a contract that all of a sudden his total value is just evaporates because, because he suddenly wants more than you want to pay him. I mean, The Chiefs won 2 Super Bowls after trading Tyreek Hill and made a very nice trade for Tyreek Hill. So I don't know. I mean, to me, you're right. There's only a couple ways to handle this. You can say you're playing on the 5th-year option and we're having no more dialogue about this. And you know where the facility is and you know what the deadlines are, and we'll see you then. Or you could, you can trade him. And, to me, trading him and getting down the road, which I think is actually in the Niners' best interest, because there's no reason to go to this level of disruption for, your 3rd or 4th best offensive player. You got to be, I think it's been proven by the teams like Kansas City and others. You got to be, you got to think about yourself. The players have to think about themselves, but the teams have to think about themselves. And you have to, you can't be wed to your players. You can't be like, oh, God, we can't go on without this guy, because the reality is you're going to have to go on without all of those guys.
Well, and the Niners are in an incredibly unique situation. They're about to hand a contractual pay raise that will dwarf by percentage any raise any player has ever gotten in any sport year over year. Like in the history of sports, no one's made $950,000 one year, $60 million the next. That's never happened. I mean, the 49ers really are looking through a window that no one has ever looked through. This has never happened before in terms of this guy was this to us, now he's this to us, and the price point is that great of a difference. So they are, look, life is timing. And unfortunately, for Brandon Aiyuk, the timing of the year he was drafted as opposed to the timing of where this franchise is with Brock Purdy, it's bad timing on Aiyuk's part. You know who had better timing? Deebo Samuel did. Deebo Samuel had great timing for his contract. Deebo Samuel's contract timing got him paid a level of money that, let's be honest, the team kind of regrets a little bit, I think, right now. So, you got to have timing in life, and the timing on this whole thing stinks. And as you and I have said, I think both of our channels cover this team through the prism of just win the fucking Super Bowl. There's nothing left to do. I mean, that's it. I think you and I both approach this team through that lens. And Brandon Aiyuk is a huge, huge piece of the Super Bowl puzzle for sure. And to not have that piece in place or be settled into its next place, to just have this linger over this year. It's the one thing we said, like, that shouldn't happen this offseason. Like, isn't the whole point of this offseason, and Kyle was talking about it, like, we're going to have a totally healthy offseason for Brock Purdy. That's going to be the difference maker this year. And he and the entire team are going to be in training camp, everybody together, the full offseason that we never got to have. It's all going to go smoothly for the first time. No holdouts, no bullshit. No, and here we are.
But it's like we cannot pretend that we didn't see this coming. We all saw this coming because Ian Rappaport in February it's now July. This is 5 months ago. 5 months ago, Ian Rappaport said at the combine, with no uncertain terms, that Brandon Aiyuk's camp wanted to wait until the market had completely revealed itself before they entered into the contract negotiations with the Niners. So this should not be a surprise to the 49ers. It should not be a surprise to Parag. It should not be a surprise to anybody. This is the stated goal of Aiyuk's agent in February, and he leaked it to Rappaport that they wanted to wait. Once they were going to wait until Jefferson signed, you knew you were going to pay a premium for Aiyuk. And so here would be my pushback on the Niners is that if you knew you were going to pay a premium, and they did, you either have to understand, you either have to come to grips with you're paying that premium or come up with a solution to avoid it. And the Niners don't seem like they've done that.
No. And that to me is the failing of Parag and what the Niners have gotten wrong. Like, everybody's doing the odds on this. And it's like, this whole negotiation is an at bat. And the 49ers, they took 2 down the middle, and they're 0-2, and now they're looking to work the count a little bit. And I don't understand why they did that, because they should have been aggressive on this. They should have been swinging away. They should have seen Brandon Aiyuk's agent come out, like you said, publicly saying that, to say we want to see how the market goes. Essentially, you're saying our price point starts at $30 million. And if the 49ers have known this entire time that price point is simply a no-go for them for a myriad of reasons, Brock Purdy, their system, the way Kyle envisions it all fitting together, everything, they should have anticipated this a little bit more. They should have consummated a trade that was fat, that got them a nice return before the draft, or, before free agency cards started flipping around. They should have anticipated this, I think, more than they've done, and been, like you're saying, a little bit more active. Now, if the reason why they weren't is because they truly value Brandon Aiyuk's importance to this team,
then pay him.
Then fucking pay him. Exactly. Then get that done. Get that done. The whole, we're bringing you back for 14 and a half, and we're going to stare at you with a furrowed brow, take it or leave it. Like, they don't got that in them. It's not who they are. It's not how they do business. It's not a good message to send to the entire league. And from just a PR standpoint, among future free agents and players, you like, all of this should have been avoided. And that's, again, not just with hindsight always being 2020. We talked about this in real time as it was happening. And it feels like the 49ers tried to pretend a problem. It's like, remember when you were a teenager and you could feel that zit coming in, and you're like, man, I hope that it feels like it's going to be a big zit here on my nose. Hopefully it doesn't turn into Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. And the 49ers did their oxy. They put their they tried to dry the zit out. They hoped it wouldn't form. Now they got a big old red zit on their nose. And that's what this is. This is the team should have avoided this. And it's
well, I mean, I don't know what everybody wants. It's like, does Aiyuk want to be here, and he's just trying to kickstart the Niners into an area that he wants negotiation-wise? Or does he really want to be elsewhere? JM617 says he should have asked for a trade before the draft. Waiting this long shows you're on the 49ers' time. Well, it's not just showing you're on the 49ers' time. If you really did want to be elsewhere, you probably should have demanded that trade before the draft, when everybody would have to put their best foot forward. Now, the 49ers, they could move Aiyuk, but there's 2 assets that you can get in return for Aiyuk, a player or a pick. And now only half of that really works for you, because you can't look at Trent Williams. You can't, John Lynch can't roll into the locker room on, next Friday and be like, hey guys, Trent, I know this is your, maybe your last year in pro football, but we're going to trade our star wide receiver, who we could have traded on draft weekend for assets that we could use this year. We're going to trade him now for draft picks solely for 2025. And you may not be around for the next season of those draft picks. So we're weakening ourselves in the present, but we're strengthening ourselves long-term. Unfortunately, we're doing it inside of our Super Bowl window. So it doesn't work.
Right.
So, like, now you have to get the rarest of rare, something that you rarely see, which is, if the Niners are going to trade Aiyuk, they have to trade him for existing NFL players. And when was the last time you saw, an existing NFL player traded for another existing NFL player? It happens, but it's not the most common, that's for sure.
Well, again, now if we want to do this, let's just rip the Band-Aid off. Let's go. Just call Denver straight up. Surtain for Aiyuk. You want to do it? Surtain for Aiyuk, and we want a 4th rounder too. You want to do that? You want to go? You want to party? I would make that phone call if I were Parag. I mean, that's
make that trade.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say this. I mean, I was looking around at different things. I don't even think I need to be, I don't think I need to be crazy, no crazy hardball. It's not like I'm asking for some Herschel Walker trade or some Deshaun Watson type deal or even some Tyreek Hill type deal. My choice would be like, hey, the one team that's already called and showed interest so far is New England. New England has no receivers. They badly need this guy. I would trade New England Brandon Aiyuk for Christian Gonzalez, their corner, and Demario Douglas, who's just like a second-year receiver who could be a replacement, and like maybe a second-round pick in next year's draft. Let's do it. You've got the for sure receiver. You've got all the cap room. You've got wide open wide receiver core. I've got all kinds of wide receivers. I'll take Demario Douglas, a starting corner, and Christian Gonzalez, and a second round pick. That second round pick could be like pick 35. I think that's I think that is a fair offer. It banishes Aiyuk to the AFC on a team that's not going anywhere, so you don't have to worry about him burning you on the back end. You get a replacement receiver in Demario Douglas, who's 5'8", but he's still, nice little receiver who can replace Aiyuk to some degree. You get a starting caliber corner, so now you're covered against Mooney and Demo walking out the door in a year, and you've got more money to play with on the cap to sign Brock or Mooney or Banks or Lenore or whoever you want to sign next year. So, to me, I would do that and get down the road. And to me, that would be so much better than every single fucking day all summer. Kyle, what's the latest on Aiyuk? Well, he tweeted this. He put on his IG that. Jaden Daniels said this. He made an emoji that looked like a Steeler helmet. He was wearing a pirate hat. He was doing, I don't care. I seriously don't care anymore. But I mean,
what was that emoji? Is that a Steelers emoji? What is?
What was that? I mean, it looked like a pile of shit and this and that and the bullshit walks and
sandwich. He drank in Iron City. He wants to go to Pittsburgh. Oh no! Oh, he had a lobster roll that he's asking to go to New England.
He went to Ike's. He got a Damon Bruce, but he said hold the onion rings. But then he said I want a Pittsburgh salad and that.
What? What's a Pittsburgh salad? By the way? There'd be a lot of meat and cheese in a Pittsburgh salad.
I have no idea. But I mean, it's just like,
yeah. By the way, a Pittsburgh salad is a bologna sandwich. That's
Pittsburgh salad. Yeah, Pittsburgh salad is a bacon with a side of lettuce. It's 3 strips of bacon and some torn up lettuce. It's called a Pittsburgh salad. But no, I mean, it's just like. Do you want the player? Of course you do. But you've also kind of replaced the player. So you've done a lot in the offseason to either replace the player or give yourself leverage to replace the player. That part's undeniable. You've done a lot.
You don't want it lingering. The only way this lingering would equal and then everything was okay is if this lingered to the point where Brandon Aiyuk was on this team week 1 and playing. Like if him being a headache means he's on the team and playing for $14.5 million, then everything is fine. But I just don't think that that's going to happen. I think he's pot committed to being very caustic in this negotiation. There hasn't been a sign that sitting down in the same room has cooled positions on either side. So it does feel a little bit like Event Horizon. And having said all that, this is Brandon Aiyuk's last Hail Mary. He just threw it. The 49ers have until Tuesday next week before his absence can actually be measured in an on-field absence. So there is still a possibility that something happens. And again, you know what I also hate about this? Is it lends to guys like you and me, other members of the media, but 49ers fans themselves, kind of like motherfucking a player that everybody should really like. And
I mean, the fans go. First of all, we're not doing that. I mean, like you haven't motherfucked Aiyuk, and neither have I.
No.
Fans, unfortunately, have. Yeah. And that kind of bugs too. Yeah, I don't like that. It's like you're so into your team that just the notion that a guy may want out or may leave your team. Now you're just this guy that yesterday you're idolizing him. You're wearing his jersey. You're loving up on him left and right verbally. Now he wants out. Now he's persona non grata. Now he's the enemy. Now he's, now he's the Antichrist. Now it's it's a little polarized dialogue for my liking.
Guy's a great commenter. He's in the chat all the time. Bacon and eggs breakfast croissant. He said Aiyuk is a toilet bug.
I've seen that a lot.
What does that mean? That's definitely not a compliment. I mean, what do you mean? Aiyuk is a toilet bug. Really?
Why? Because he wants to get paid?
Exactly. Yeah. Like, come on. Like, there's got to be a better way to describe the situation or the person than that. Like that's come on. What do you mean Aiyuk is a toilet bug?
He goes on to say Aiyuk is a crybaby. I'm tired of his drama. So, I mean, this is the way it plays. This is the way it plays. This is the risk if you're gonna
What happened, Larry?
Oh, there we go. One of my pop-ups had a video going in the background. What I was going to say is there's an interesting thing out there right now.
Bacon and eggs breakfast croissant has updated it. Aiyuk is a rich toilet bug. Well, he wants to be a richer toilet bug.
Way to take hey, bacon and eggs. Way to take the high road. Way to take the high road.
When they go low, we go high. There you go. Like and subscribe to Wake Up. We're taking the high road, everyone.
Here's a high road. Some out of nowhere, guys like Larry. Do you think the Giants can trade Farhan for Billy Bean? Maybe if they ask for that Billy Bean, but if you add an E on the end, I don't think they're getting that Billy Bean. Yeah, what can you say? A lot of people. It's unfortunate that people get that. Get that kind of. We love them, we hate them, we hate them, we love them. But I mean, I guess it's just the nature of being a fan.
What would be really
fanatic.
What would be really great if the NFL built in a mechanism to teams to be able to pay market value to players that they draft and develop without being it's so punitive against the cap, or just grow the frickin' cap. This sport is hemorrhaging money and profits to owners who watch their NFL owners make more money on a day in the offseason just watching their franchise gain exponential value. Just because no team in the NFL is about to be worth less tomorrow than it was today. It's incapable of it. That can't happen. It really is an unbreakable level of success. Buy NFL team, reap rewards. Nothing can happen that will ever mean you lost money on this. 49ers, Jed York made more money sleeping last night as the owner of the 49ers than every 49er fan awake during their workday could possibly make. What do they call the income that you don't even have to worry about? It just comes in. That's
passive income.
Passive income. Thank you very much. Passive income. There is just passive income coming in at all times to this league. It's a shame that they have, a salary cap that puts teams and general managers in position to play a game of musical chairs every year when not moving the chair makes the dining room set better. And it's just...
they said this early in free agency. They said, you know what? The guy who leaves your team in free agency is going to create a bigger hole than the guy who you sign in free agency is going to fill because of the complexity of learning these offenses and these schemes and these defenses and everything that goes into
say that again.
Your
like
language.
That. Say that again. Say that again.
That when you lose a free agent, it creates a bigger void in your roster than if you sign a free agent, it doesn't fill that void. So like you drafted and developed Javon Hargrave. He leaves. He creates a bigger hole for you than the team that goes like the Niners just did and signs Javon Hargrave fills that hole. You know what I mean? By getting that free agent, you're losing more by the departing free agent than you're gaining in the incoming free agent. And that's why
you just said a mouthful there, brother. I mean, you're right. You're right.
Well, and also they're older too. They're older guys. I mean, by definition, you're talking about you're not going to be a free agent unless you're at least, 26, 27. Some guys are 33.
Rookie deal.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's that. I mean, the one interesting thing that's out there right now, I mean, first of all, we can talk about Aiyuk, but doesn't it seem like this is not about of the 49ers or Aiyuk, that this is about the NFL, their values, how they value the players, supply and demand, and the wide receiver position? Because CeeDee Lamb's not happy, and T. Higgins is not happy, and Devontae got traded, and Tyreek got traded, and Diggs got traded, and Aiyuk may get traded, and Debo is rumored to be traded. And yet all the great inside linebackers don't get traded. All the great safeties don't get traded. All the great quarterbacks don't get traded. All the great tight ends don't get traded. I mean, occasionally you'll see a Darren Waller move from team A to team B or something like that. But for the most part, you're seeing a lot of these issues. Do we pay this guy? Do we not? It's coming up at wide receiver because the money is going crazy.
It feels like,
and the demand for the position, or the supply, is also plentiful. So you've got some teams going, well, wait a second. If the supply is plentiful, why am I paying outrageous prices for a receiver that I don't even like being around? I mean, I don't even like this guy. Why am I paying him?
It feels like the NFL is made up of agreed upon price points per position. And wide receiver is the one position that is really like tiptoeing across the line of agreed upon price points. The same thing happened for defensive ends a few years ago, right? Khalil Mack and the whole got to trade Khalil Mack because you can't be paying $20 million for a player on both sides of the ball. That's what John Gruden said out loud. Fast forward to modern times, paying a $20 million salary on both sides of the ball is not only uncommon, it's standard operating procedure now in the NFL. Good NFL starters per position are at least 15 to 20 million per position. Wide receivers are saying, wait a minute. So good wide receivers now have to be in that 25 to $30 million range. Well, now you're talking starting left tackle money. I mean, you're talking what used to be a good quarterback money. Quarterbacks are about to make 50 to 60 million. So the price point on everything is going up. And it just feels like this is the NFL. Collusion's a big, nasty word. This isn't collusion. But I think you got a group of GMs in this league who are basically saying, no, that we don't really want to go here. And a few other groups of GMs who are saying, look, this is the best player on my team. Justin Jefferson is more important to the Vikings than, any one wide receiver might be important to their franchise, but for Tyreek Hill. So they paid him accordingly. Brandon Aiyuk might live in that position, but he doesn't live in that same existence because of the team that he's on. And that's where I think all the gray area comes in. Well, this is my value. This is my market value. This is my value to the team that I'm on. This is my value to the open market. And Brandon Aiyuk is getting all these different price points thrown back at him. And that muddies up a conversation.
And he was asked during that Pivot podcast, do you want, will the Niners get a hometown discount? No, they're not getting a hometown discount. What do you think of being on the Niners with, Shanahan and all these great weapons and all the talent around you? And he's like, you know what? I want to gamble on myself. I want the most money. I mean, basically he answered like 5 different questions with, I want the most money. So he wants the most money. Okay, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with wanting the most money, especially when you play a sport where you've got, very limited number of years to earn that money. So he's got to make it all happen in this contract. So I don't begrudge Aiyuk at all. But, he's made it perfectly clear that that's his number one priority. And so the Niners got to do what's best for them. He's got to do what's best for him. And to me, when you run the ball as much as they run the ball and you have all these other receivers, paying Brandon Aiyuk this kind of cash does not make sense. And I would not pay him. I would definitely trade him. And as far as we got a couple people. I'm going to put a couple of these on the board here because people are asking this question. Maybe you have the answer. Keeping the Faith says rumors of an Aiyuk for Davante Adams trade.
So there is a guy named Pretty Ricky 213 who's on Twitter right now. He claims to be an insider. I don't know who he is, but
he's on Twitter.
It says the Raiders are a team interested in trading for Brandon Aiyuk, according to a rumor. Aiyuk knows Antonio Pierce from his days at ASU. Yep. And here's the fun part. The Raiders would send Davante Adams to the Niners in any trade. Davante has no real money on his deal after this season. All right. So if you're telling me that the way that this ends is the 49ers have traded Brandon Aiyuk to the Raiders for Davante Adams, okay, do that. Yeah, sure. That would be and everything ended really well. Sure. Go ahead and do that.
I don't know about that. You just gave away 5 years of a receiver. I mean, you just traded a 26-year-old receiver for a 31 going on 32-year-old receiver.
Right, but if you're not going to do business with a 26-year-old, and if you're not going to retain him, and if he's going to go anyways, and you need snaps on the season back, who could give you better snaps at the position that he just vacated than Davante Adams, who is
I hear you. I'm just saying that would not be my first choice.
If I could get Brandon Aiyuk and strap him in with a Clockwork Orange situation where his eyes are held open by a claw like this, and he's strapped into the chair, you know what I would show him? I would show him highlights of Davante Adams from crushed. From the receiver thing. Look at how frustrated. Davante Adams has all the money anyone in the world could ever want. Davante Adams has a level of generational wealth built into his family tree, which means his great-grandchildren ain't eating SpaghettiOs. He's miserable. He is miserable. Every minute of the receiver, Davante Adams is fucking miserable.
But if your stated goal is to take care of your family, and you're making the most money.
Here's the thing, Larry.
You're living in Vegas. Larry, you got a better tax situation.
Larry, are you making $14.5 million a year? The answer is no, and you're taking care of your family. You can take care of your family for $14.5 million. If $14.5 million were the final paychecks you ever collected in your life, you could stretch out $14.5 million after agent, after taxes, after California. Your $14.5 million is now down to $7 million. You could live really well on $7 million between now and the day you die.
You're living better on 30.
Sure you are. But here's the thing.
And we can play this game forever. You're totally right. I mean, Spreewell, I need to, I can't feed my family on 12 mil.
Part of being an athlete is being happy where you are and winning. And in football, maybe more than any other sport, there is no joy in a losing game. There is none to be found. Well, you had a really good day while the team around you lost. You don't go home happy. You don't go home. Brent,
I'll tell you, that's intriguing to me. The Davante thing's intriguing though, because he wants out. And the Raiders' other receivers outside of Davante Adams are Jacoby Myers, Trey Tucker, Michael Gallup. And after that, it ain't really worth even naming these guys because nobody knows these guys. So they got nothing at receiver outside of Davante. So if they came and said, "No, I'm not taking Davante straight up for Aiyuk," especially not when Aiyuk's 26. But let's just say the Raiders came and knocked on the door and said, "We will give you Davante Adams and Michael Mayer, the Notre Dame tight end. Now we drafted Brock Bowers. We don't need Michael Mayer anymore. So we'll give you Michael Mayer and Davante Adams for Aiyuk." Would you do it? And I would do that.
At the speed of light, I'd drive Aiyuk to the airport for that deal. I mean,
I would absolutely do that. And then if the Jets are that hardcore about getting Davante Adams, and it sounds like they really are, I'd turn around and try to make a good deal with the Jets for, Davante Adams. Here's because the Niners don't really need a receiver. They've got a lot of receivers. What they need is another corner, another safety, another offensive tackle, another defensive tackle. They have some other needs. They could flip Devontae to the Jets for either draft picks, or you could, once again, Malachi Corley or something. I don't know, but you could flip Devontae to the Jets if you wanted to for picks and get Michael Mayer and send Aiyuk to the Raiders. That would be not bad. It depends how good you think Michael Mayer is. I think Michael Mayer is going to be a really good young tight end.
I would rather try to win a Super Bowl this year with Devontae Adams as a wide receiver than Michael Mayer and a draft pick in the future. I will take Devontae Adams.
You could do it that way if you wanted to, but what if you get to camp and suddenly Pearsall and Cowing look great and Debo's in great shape? And now you've got all these receivers. Well, but I'm just saying the Raiders badly, the Jets supposedly badly want to reunite Devontae Adams and Rodgers, and I would make that happen for them. But I want to get, I want compensation on my end too. So I don't know what I want. Maybe I want Michael Clemens. Maybe I want Jermaine Johnson. Maybe I want Will McDonald IV. Maybe I want, an offensive lineman, Elijah Vera Tucker or something. I want some piece or picks, but at least then you're getting Michael Mayer and Devontae, and you're getting pick. You could turn Devontae into picks if you wanted to, or you could just roll with Devontae. For a year, just say, hey, you know what? We're going to try to win the Super Bowl with Devontae, and he's a damn good receiver. He's very dependable. Purdy to Devontae may be epic. You never know, but that's what I would do. I definitely would rather move off of Aiyuk for a trade that we debated how good it was than sit there and wait for him to come in, because the one thing that you absolutely cannot have happen is you cannot have him hold out and show up only to accrue the year. If that will do your team damage, it will hurt your chances of winning the Super Bowl. It will make your locker room a uglier place to be.
And let's be honest, it also really damages Aiyuk's reputation too. There's damage on both sides of that, of the body of that car. There is. Brandon Aiyuk would severely damage his reputation, not in the eyes of every general manager, but in the eyes of some general managers. They just be like, man, I'm trading for a guy and acquiring a guy and going to give him $30 million to someone who's cool with just sitting out in their prime in a Super Bowl window. Like that doesn't jive to a lot of general managers. So that would do damage to Brandon Aiyuk's reputation. And again, Brandon Aiyuk has no damage on his reputation, but for this moment, he has been a quiet, hardworking, healthy, productive, all-pro NFL receiver. He's done nothing up to this offseason to rub anybody the wrong way. Nothing. Guy's a consummate pro. And it just sucks that this has reached this moment. And again, the only way this moment wasn't reached is if you paid him or traded him, and the Niners have done none. So here we are standing on the same freaking balance beam for a couple of months talking about the same thing. And the only thing that is different is we now have an official trade request, which officially kind of also means nothing too. So we're right back to where we've started. Like and subscribe. Wake Up coming to you 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays on both channels. Thank you for being a part of this. Tell your friends about it. This is the place to be. 3 days a week for 49er fans, greater football fans around. It's not just Niner all the time, but it's certainly Niner focus. And there's one other thing that I got to put on the table here, Larry, before we get into like any, what do you think of Lauri Markkanen or the All-Star game stuff? Dude, you want to talk about rocked up. Nick Bosa has a challenger to the 49ers hot bod contest. And I only bring it up not to oogle at a man's goodies, but to just say, if this is the body that Malik Mustafa begins his career with, what's he going to look like 3 years from now when he's 3 years into eating like a pro and training like a pro and recovering like a pro? What is Malik Mustafa's body going to look like 3 years from now if his starting point is chiseled out of marble, zero body fat? Larry, this guy he is thick. Oh my God.
He's jacked. Yeah. The guy, and he's a player too. I mean, it'd be one thing if he was just jacked, but he's a player. And it's funny when you see him in his pads, or even just in the jersey. He looks like a guy that may not even be able to play safety because his body's just too big. But then you look at him and you see how lean his waist is and how ripped up he is and how shredded he is. And you're like, oh, wait a second. This guy definitely, he just has super broad shoulders. It gives him a different kind of look on the football field where he looks bulky, but he's lean.
He's a V.
I think
both has got that going for him. He's a V. I mean, you got shoulders out here, you got a waist here. It's all thick in the middle. He is just that guy ripped. Is a load.
He's ripped, and he's a great player too. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, Mustafa is in position to. I mean, they're in a weird spot. They only really have Hufanga, Brown, and Mustafa. I mean, Odom is their fourth safety. He's a special teamer. The other guys are just guys, so they don't really have any depth here. Maybe Jalen Mahoney
to fill in for Greenlaw a little bit.
What's that?
I think Mustafa. There's a chance that Mustafa plays a little outside linebacker this year.
Well, I think he's good. I mean, they need him at free safety or strong safety. I mean, if they're going to play Jair Brown at maybe free and play Mustafa at strong, but I think he's going to plug in as a starting safety right away. I think he's going to be one of their best picks and a guy who's going to plug in right away as a starter.
Here's my prediction.
They played him in that bandit position at Wake, so he kind of played. Times he played like a corner. Times he played like a D lineman. Sometimes he's playing like a weak side backer. But the Niners, I think, would like to use him as a box safety. And I think he's got potential to be a plug and play week one starter. If you made me today, right now, you said, give me the starting secondary for the 49ers, I would say it's going to be Mooney and Lenore and, the starting safeties would be
Jair Brown
and Hufanga, but now Hufanga's out. So I think the starting safeties are going to be Mustafa and Brown.
I do too. How about this? Now, the Aiyuk situation as it relates to Ricky Pearsall could definitely up Pearsall's snaps this year. We'll see how that plays out. If Dominic Pooney officially beats out someone to be a starting offensive lineman on this team, then he will 100% lead the rookie class of the 49ers in snap count. But until that happens, Malik Mustafa, I think, is going to get more rookie snaps than any other rookie on this team.
Yeah, I mean, unless Renardo Green. I mean, it's really between Mustafa and Renardo Green to see who's going to play safety. It's either going to be you've got Mustafa playing free strong safety and Jair Brown playing free safety, or it could be Jair Brown playing strong safety and Renardo Green playing free safety. So to me, it's those two rookies are front and center for, competing against each other. They're different type players, but they both have the ability to play safety.
But if Renardo's a nickel, you're on the field less than a starting safety just by definition. So you can't play the taking as many snaps as you game if he's a nickel. Now, if he unseats somebody as a starting corner,
he could be a free safety. I'm saying he could be the starting free safety. Renardo.
Maybe. Well, isn't that a little bit
He's played a little free safety, and it's become much more of a coverage game. So, it's like he can cover. I mean, he can play that spot. So, I mean, that's going to be the question. I mean, the question is they've got, safeties. They all seem like they're better in the box. But can any of the three top guys between Hufanga, Jair Brown, and Mustafa, can any of those three guys play the deep middle? That's the question. And if they can, then probably Mustafa winds up starting week one, and that's how it goes. But if they can't, then maybe you have Renardo Green playing free safety. And maybe you go with Luter or somebody else as your. Maybe you go with Lenore in the slot and Luter outside as your full-time starter. There's also Yadam, who's, big, strong, coming off a great year. So he could be in the mix too.
Rock Yassin.
Yeah. Rock Yassin. The knee checks out.
Let's get to some of these starred super chats here, Larry. I know people always want to see their contributions acknowledged instead of saving them to the very end of the show. Let's get to them.
Well, let's see. We had a couple of these up front. Rumors of the Devontae Adams trade. We got this guy saying looking sharp. Did you guys hear about the Raider rumors? I don't know if there is an official Raider rumor. Would you call that an official Raider rumor?
It's an official rumor. I don't know if I'm going to classify it as a Raider rumor, but it's a rumor.
But to me, Zach, how many followers does that guy have who put that out?
I don't care.
I mean, does he have anybody? B. Lawrence says BA to the Raiders for Devontae Adams would be amazing. We got this super from Leon Sandcastle.
See how much legs this actually has underneath. JT knows every inner working, everything about the Raiders, so I'll ask him.
There you go. Would you take Aiyuk for Michael Mayer and Devontae? Leon Sandcastle, when an NFL undrafted free agent gets drafted in the UFL, does that player have his choice of the two, or does a certain league have contractual priority? No, there were some players. I think Tanner Mordecai might have been drafted today and by one of these secondary football leagues. No, they own your rights for that league. So it's
right. If you want to go play in that league, you have a contract waiting for you.
Right. You can't also a home. I mean, you can't just sign anywhere. And in a lot of these startup leagues too. I mean, it's funny. I was watching a 30 for 30 on Jim Kelly a few months ago, and Jim Kelly said to the cameras, they're like, hey, he got drafted by the Buffalo Bills. He didn't want to live in Buffalo. He didn't like the cold weather. He went to college at University of Miami, and he got drafted by the Houston Gamblers, and they were in the USFL. And they're like, Jim, you can play anywhere you want. We just need quarterbacks to come. What you tell us where you want to play, and we'll get you there. So he said Houston Gamblers. And it's funny because there's video of him on camera as a young man going, where would I rather live, Houston or Buffalo? And it's like, dude, I've been to Houston. I mean, yes, it's cold and snowy in Buffalo, New York, but it's still New York over Houston, Texas, which is just maybe the worst climate I think I've ever.
Well, by the way, hold on, dude.
Watched. Still, I mean, it was unbelievable. One of the worst climates
New York by definition, but Buffalo is more like West Virginia than it is. You're a New Yorker. Upstate New York comes with rifles and banjos more than it comes.
I hear you, but I mean, I've been to Buffalo. It's near Toronto. It's still, in my mind, better than Houston. I think Houston might be the worst climate in America. So there you go. I mean, it's all beauty in the eye of the beholder. Niners Worldwide says, what's the Niners Raiders rumor? We kind of went into that. Stephen Draper says, BA knows Kyle Shanahan can play money ball with play calling. Yeah, but so if he knows Kyle's such a great play caller, if anything, he sounded like he was pissed at Kyle for the way he only got 3 balls in the Super Bowl, and maybe is not too thrilled about his usage.
That's
the downside is he only got 3 catches in the playoff games.
He would have gotten Brandon Aiyuk would have seen more traffic come to him if he presented himself as a better target in that game. Full stop. Brandon Aiyuk was covered like a blanket.
He had moments where he was open. He just, you got to block. You got to block, and your quarterback's got to have time to find you open. Like he beat his guy on that key play at the end, but
at the end of the game, yeah.
And he was open. There was more than a couple times that he was open, but it's just the way it goes. Just the way it goes. Bacon egg breakfast croissant says, Larry, tell us about the ladies in Buffalo.
They like their chicken wings.
They like their chicken wings spicy, and they always have a jacket.
Look at it this way: they're equipped for winter.
M. Patel says Buffalo is basically Canada. Yes,
it is.
Okay, here we go. Now we get M. Patel ripping me. That's because Larry is fat. Fat people hate humidity and love the cold.
There's a little truth to that. Maybe not the Larry is fat part, but overweight people do prefer colder climates than being armpitting out and all sweaty. And now you got, You got a river running in between your belly rolls. You don't want that.
Yeah, yeah. Nobody likes humidity. I mean, baseball players in this, like to warm up in humidity. Other than that, I mean, nobody likes humidity. Humidity is oppressive. All right, that's it. That's it for our supers there.
All right. Well, thanks to everyone. Real quick, Larry, at 11, I'm going to be doing a shorter show today. Not, it's a slow news day. I'm not going to go over the Aiyuk thing again, but I am going to be talking about what a cataclysmic failure baseball has turned the All-Star game into. I mean, I really think that last night, I haven't seen any of the overnight ratings. I guarantee you that's one of the least watched, least loved, most forgotten All-Star games of all time. The single most emblematic memory from an All-Star weekend was a drunk national anthem singer who botched the song in a historic way. That's the
I listened to it too. It was like I've heard other people sing it straight, claim they were sober and were worse than her.
Oh, I don't know. That was all over the map. And here's the thing,
it was bad, but it wasn't like she got through it. I mean, what about people like Carl Lewis who are like, uh-oh.
Right, but Carl Lewis doesn't have 4 Grammys. Carl Lewis never.
No, I know, but I mean, it was bad, but you could have also just given it it was like her spin on it. It was like she's an artist. It was artistic. It was
not Jose Feliciano interpreting the national anthem.
But it wasn't like, I don't know. You'd have to go hear it for yourself. It wasn't like the first time you heard it. Like if you heard it, you just be like, she's wasted. It didn't sound good. But it wasn't like
no, she's not slurring her word, but it was awful.
She wasn't slurring, it wasn't wasted. It was just kind of like bad,
Ohtani hit a home run. Mason Miller dusted Ohtani when he pitched against him. The anthem sucked. The derby sucked. But the amount of the Major League Baseball should be firing people today. That's how bad that All-Star game was. Whoever planned that. They tried to make this All-Star week. They butchered this thing every way imaginable. You have a game of your greatest young stars. It's called the Futures Game. They bury this game. These are the future of the sport. Is the guys in the Futures Game. These are your stars. You're supposed to be promoting the hell out of these guys. They barely promoted it. They had horrible announcers for that game. I mean, horrible. Woman on the broadcast was a GD embarrassment. At one point, she said that pitch was, or she's like, oh, that was an ugly swing. And it's like, you don't hear baseball announcers really rip the players that much like that. I mean, it was weird the way she said it. She's like, that was an ugly swing. But overall, they did a terrible job. If you think about it, I mean, nobody knows their young prospects. They moved the draft from June to this week to have the draft be something, but nope, the draft is nothing. They can't turn the draft into anything. They've got a panel full of people that nobody's ever heard of on both ESPN and the MLB network, breaking these guys down, all kinds of, just jargon. It's just a gigantic, you think the football draft is jargon, the baseball, there's just a little bit too much swing and miss and then blah, 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 all these buzzwords and codes and all this stuff for all this crap. And then they take the All-Star game, and the All-Star game, the best part about the All-Star game always was seeing the players lined up on the side and getting to see your Giants in the game and their uniforms. Now they got rid of the uniforms. There's only there's a giant logo on the sleeve. So if you can kind of make out, okay, wait a second. I think is that a Mariner logo? You can't even tell
who's on what team.
The baseball, baseball
For what? For not for uniforms that we love, for just throwaway nothing uniforms that they want to sell. I mean, you can still sell an all-star uniform. I mean, I guarantee they sold all-star uniforms in the 80s, but they didn't wear them in the game. It's wear your own uniform.
Have the site-specific uniform be on display in the home run derby, but the game should be home and away uniforms.
Yes.
And from a player identification standpoint, this is the most amount of first-time all-stars I think ever in an all-star game. So it's the least recognizable all-star game ever. Jaren Duran is your all-star MVP. If you walked out and asked 100 people, what team does Darren Duran play for? What team does he play for?
Boston.
Well, we know that.
Yeah. No, I know.
That. But
I always thought we were talking about the Memphis center.
No, I'd be like Duran. What are you talking about? It's the least recognizable crop of major leaguers ever. It's the least recognizable uniform of all time, and the most antiseptic, this stadium blows stadium that you could possibly build. Like that really is the equivalent of baseball's Levi's Stadium. There ain't nothing special about that ballpark. And it is the All-Star game now.
I mean, I think it's a nice park. I mean, I think it's a nice
game
park.
Now serves T-Mobile more than it does any baseball fan or baseball player or the game's history. T-Mobile is taken better care of than baseball at the Major League All-Star game. So shame on everyone involved. There should be people.
Everybody hated Berman, but Berman created so much of the fun. Now everybody's stiff. I mean, here's the other thing too. They had the Pro Bowl for a while. When they had the Pro Bowl, they created Pro Bowl uniforms because it's football and you've got to be able to know who's on what team and that kind of thing when you're playing football. But they kept the helmets.
Right.
Why did they not just have red and blue helmets? Because they want you to be able to identify who the players are. And it's like they couldn't give these players even their hats. You couldn't wear a Giants hat, a Yankees hat, a Dodgers hat. You have to wear some hat that's a special all-star hat. I mean, Major League Baseball has fucked this up so much. I watched pretty much just the convention last night at that point because it's like, you know what, it's a major convention. Who cares? I mean, I don't even really. It wasn't. I turned to the All-Star game. I watched an inning or two. I saw the guy from the Cubs, Imanaga, on the mound. I guess he's kind of fun to watch. But I mean, it just didn't hold me. I mean, I really, and maybe I'm just getting too old. Maybe it's, but even my kid wasn't super into it. I taped it. When he came back from football, he's like, watched a little bit of it. But
well,
I'm just saying.
Somebody tried to tell me, like, well, the kids really love these uniforms. What kids? What kids are watching that game? What kid is interested in baseball that wasn't dragged to the park by his father? I mean, there aren't kids interested in Major League Baseball. The average viewer of a Major League Baseball game is a white man in his 50s. That's provable. That's not my opinion. This game is
it's a global. First of all, it's a global game. I wouldn't say it's a white man's game. It's the most popular sport in Cuba. It's the most popular sport in the DR. It's the most popular sport in Puerto Rico.
Is a 54-year-old, 56-year-old man. That's it.
Right. And I'm just saying it's not just it. There are more than just white people that like baseball, but it's gotten to the point where the people who it's nothing's wrong with baseball. It's what's wrong with Major League Baseball.
Right. It's the people that
run
the
Manfred.
It's people that run this game
and they make bad decisions.
They do. Larry,
they make bad decisions. I mean, those players were not very identifiable. The futures game guys were not like walk around today. 1 week after All-Star week, right? It was their showcase. You could go in any city in America and say, name me a player that was drafted. Can't. Name me a player that played in the futures game. And they can't. So
all you need to know about baseball is this.
That's a problem.
All you need to know about baseball is this. And this is an example of how poorly run, how uncreative, how enable baseball is at just about everything it does. The NHL draft resonates more than the Major League Baseball draft. The NHL figured out a way to like, hey, let's get to the sphere. Let's add something super cool to this. Let's give people a lot of shit to look at that's interesting and exciting. And even though you can't identify any of these players and no one even gives a shit about hockey, it holds the NHL amateur draft holds a bigger, more important place in, drafting society than baseball's draft does. And that means everybody involved and on top should be fired on that one point alone. And then we'll get to the All-Star uniforms and who booked this fucking singer and who came up with 9 different ways to ruin every single home run derby. Each player gets 40 swings. What are you out of your fucking mind?
Oh, I mean, I didn't watch home run. I didn't watch home run derby. I mean, I watched a little bit of it initially, and then I just turned it off. It's just not. Doesn't do anything for me.
We need a bunch of baseball guys running baseball. Rob Manfred, not a baseball guy in any way, shape, or form.
It's just a bad. I love baseball, but baseball's local, and it's like there's none of the local angles are played in this thing. You don't know who's on the field in the All-Star game. The baseball players, I mean, really, how many baseball players, if they weren't in their full uniform, would you actually recognize?
There can't be 10.
The reality is it's like 3 or 4.
There can't be 10. And one of them has
Aaron Judge. I mean, it's not. It might not even be 2. I mean, it's Aaron Judge
and Shohei Ohtani because he's
maybe
Japanese.
Ohtani because he's big. That's about it.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'd recognize Logan Webb. I'd recognize Logan Webb anywhere, but that's just because I think he looks like that actor.
But nobody else would. Nobody would recognize Logan Webb. I mean, Giants fans would. That's what I'm saying. Baseball's local. Baseball's a local game. But it's not. It doesn't. You need something more. I mean,
Kershaw. You'd recognize Clayton Kershaw. That's about it. Really,
I'm gonna go down. I'm gonna go down the list of a few names here, and you tell me. Stephen Kwan. Would you recognize Stephen Kwan?
No.
Would you recognize Gunnar Henderson?
No.
Would you recognize Corey Seager?
Yes.
No. Okay. I would. I would recognize a number of these guys, but you know what I'm saying.
Right,
Bobby Witt Jr. No. Aaron Judge. Yes.
Yes.
Juan Soto. Yes.
Yes.
Some guy named Santander for the Orioles. No. The guy for Boston, Duran. No. I mean, Vlad Guerrero Jr., okay, maybe,
sure.
Right? But I mean, even like a great player, Adley Rutschman. I wouldn't recognize Adley Rutschman if he was standing on the corner, and he's a great player.
This is a chance baseball has to market its sport, and I feel like we know less about its All-Stars after its All-Star game than we did going into it. I mean, they just did a terrible job. The broadcast sucked, all of it.
Yeah, baseball it's forgettable. It's totally forgettable. I mean, look at the jerseys. The American League wore a beige jersey with orange sleeves. I mean, it's just awful. Just absolutely awful.
Well, and isn't like any sort of all-star jersey happening in a city should be echoing the host team's colors. That's not the red that the Rangers wear. That's not the shade of blue that the Rangers wear. So what are we doing over here? And let's just be completely honest.
Stop playing around
and asking Nike to make uniforms. They've been a disaster.
Well, I mean, also, but stop having a special uniform. I mean, there's nothing that requires a special uniform. I mean, we saw Reggie hit one off the light tower in 71 in Detroit. He was wearing an A's uniform. Right. He wasn't in some American League uniform where we couldn't figure it out. But I mean, that All-Star game had Willie Mays, Roberto Clemente, Hank Aaron. I mean, you had guys that everybody knew who they were. The top 3 hitters in the National League lineup yesterday were Ketel Marte, Shohei Ohtani, and Trey Turner.
Right.
So you might recognize one of the 3.
What baseball doesn't understand is you do have special uniforms. major league uniforms.
Right.
They are all special. They're all beautiful in their goofy ass ways. And that's what
It's
every
branding.
It's
It's recognizable branding.
putting on, right? Dressing in a major league clubhouse, putting on that uniform. You got something special to wear already. And they just screw it up in every way.
Guys,
Larry, I really guys
get to are brought to tears when they just stare at their first major league uniform in their locker. And yet it's, even though guys come to tears staring at their first major league uniform, All-Star game, let's put them in pajamas that nobody can recognize anybody.
Right. I got to get running, buddy. I got to make a call before my 11 o'clock starts. I've got something that I got to do on behalf of the kids. So if you want to keep going, keep going. But I got to get going, Larry. Always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you. Back Friday for more Wake Up. Looking forward to that. Like and subscribe. If you want to keep complaining about the Major League All-Star game, you go right ahead. There's plenty of room to complain.
Join me at noon. Sai's going to be in the house. We'll go a little co-stream on the latest on whatever's going on with the Warriors and
Lowry marketing.
Their pursuit of a trade. But check me out at noon. I'll be doing that today with Sai on a little dual channel deal he'll initiate, but Sai and I on our 2 channels today at noon. Until then, have a great day, everybody. Thanks for checking us out on Wake Up. Have a great day. We will catch you all on Friday.